The next day, we gathered in front of the station yet again. The only difference would be that there was a switch in members. In addition to the SOS Brigade members, there were 3 new faces standing before me. They were the underling characters Haruhi had mentioned. "Hey, Kyon, this is not how you said it would be." Taniguchi was filing some sort of protest. "Where's the lovely Asahina? I only came because you said she'd be here to greet us. She's not here, douche." Exactly. The scheduled time had passed and Asahina still hadn't shown up. She's most likely cooped up inside her room, refusing to go outside, considering how much she went through yesterday and the day before. "Bro, I came here for eye candy. What's all this? All I've seen so far is Suzumiya's pissed off face. Is this a scam?" "Bro, shut up. Why don't you look at Nagato or something?" "Well, in any case, that outfit really suits Nagato," Kunikita commented in a carefree tone. He would be the second underling after Taniguchi. The night before, I had just gotten into the bathtub when Haruhi called. I took the phone from my sister and answered it as I washed my hair. "That moron Taniguchi and the other one. I can't remember his name. But anyway, you're friends. Bring the 2 of them with you tomorrow. We'll be using them for underlings." And then she hung up. Didn't even say hello or how I was doing. When you ask people to do something for you, you should probably try sounding more appealing. You know, the way Asahina sounds. Once I was done with my bath, I called Taniguchi and Kunikita to ask if they had any plans for the weekend. With that, the board-side duo immediately consented to come. What do you guys usually do on the weekend? Maybe Haruhi thought the 2 guys by themselves wouldn't make much for a shot, but whatever the case, she had prepared another extra. That person was currently bent over, peering into Nagato's face under her wide-brim hat. With a toss of her long hair, she stood straight to greet me with a smile. "Kyon, what happened to Mikuru?" That cheerful girl was Suya, Asahina's classmate. According to Asahina, she was, quote, a friend from this time period, end quote. So I would assume she doesn't have a weird background. Back in June when Haruhi was like, "Let's enter a baseball tournament," and we needed more people, Asahina brought this normal second-year female high schooler. Oh yeah, Taniguchi and Kunikita were also around for that one. My sister too, actually, while we're thinking about it. "So what are we doing? I was told to come if I happen to be free. Ooh, what's it say on Suzumiya's armband? What you gonna do with that video camera? Why is Yuki dressed like that?" She fired the stream of questions in rapid succession. By the time I opened my mouth to respond, Suya already moved on to Koizumi. "Whoa, Koizumi, looking sharp today." She's a busy person. Still, Haruhi could give Suya a run for her money when it comes to hyperactivity. Pretty impressive how she could yell at her cell phone so loudly this early in the morning. "What are you talking about? You're the star. 30% of this movie's success is riding on you. Though the other 70% depends on my talent, but whatever. What was that? Your stomach hurts. Stupid. That excuse was only going to work in grade school. Get your ass down here right now, in 30 seconds. It would appear that Asahina is suffering from an onset of Hikikomori syndrome. It was inevitable. Wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the mere thought of having to endure yet another day of torture would be enough to emotionally induce stomach pains. She's a pretty timid person. Sheesh. Haruhi hung up in a rage with a look on her face like a butler about to scold a child for not using proper table manners. She needs to be punished. Oh, don't be like that. Asahina, unlike you, just wants to live a quiet life. You could leave her in peace on Sunday at least. That's what I think. Of course, Haruhi wasn't going to listen to any selfish requests from the leading actress. This female director kept a short leash on her star, even when it wasn't paying her a penny. I'll go pick her up. Hand me that bag over there. She snatched a clear bag containing the costumes and sprinted off to the taxi stand. She then pounded on the window of a parked taxi until the door was opened, before jumping in and riding off somewhere. That's right, I don't know where Asahina lives, though I've been to Nagato's place a number of times. I can understand how Asahina feels. Koizumi had moved to stand next to me when I wasn't paying attention. Suya was with the Joker combo from my class saying stuff like, "Hey, it's been a while," as they bowed and fawned over her. Koizumi smiled as he watched them. After all, there's an impression that she may actually become a real transforming heroine at this rate. Anyway, the laser rays were definitely over the top. What wouldn't be over the top? Well, let's see. Something on the level of breathing fire from her mouth would be simple to set up. Asahina isn't supposed to be a monster, performer, or evil wrestler. What if her lovely lids get burned? Nobody could possibly shoulder the responsibility for that. Don't tell me you're already planning on taking responsibility for her. Not at all. The only time I would ever feel responsibility would be if I would have allowed the Celestials to run wild. Fortunately, that never happened. Well, it happened once, didn't it? By the way, I gotta thank you for your actions during that time. Your help allowed us to get through that incident. Half a year ago, the world was on the verge of being destroyed. Thanks to excruciating physical effort and exhausting mental exertion on my part, the world was able to hang on by a thread. I figured it wouldn't be odd to expect world leaders to send me thank you letters, but I have yet to hear from any of the embassies. Well, it'd be a problem if they actually did show up, so I'm not really hoping for anything. I received an award last time in the form of an embrace from Asabi no Asahina. When I thought about it, that was more than enough. It wasn't like Koizumi saying thanks was going to make me happy. About Mikuru Asahina. Hey, don't use her first name. It gives me an unpleasant feeling. Excuse me. About Asahina. It appears that we'll be able to avoid having her emit odd rays. Well, how'd you manage that? Aren't you really being optimistic and assuming that Haruhi didn't prepare a spare color of contacts? No, it's already been taken care of. Nagato was very cooperative. I looked over at the unmoving girl staring at the shops in the station before looking back at Koizumi. What'd you do to Asahina? Now, there's no need to worry. We merely eliminated any exposure to laser. I don't entirely understand it myself. Nagato, unlike other TFI terminals, speaks very little. I simply requested her to remove any risk of danger. What's a TFI? It's an abbreviation that we arbitrarily assigned. It's not exactly vital information. However, I believe that Nagato stands out even when compared for the rest of them. I believe that she may serve another purpose beyond the mere interface. What else would the tight-mouthed bookworm do besides serve Haruhi? Ryoko Asakura would be missed by more people. Not that I miss her, though. After 30 minutes, the taxi Haruhi had taken returned. Waitress Asahina was in tow, looking as glum as she did yesterday. Haruhi was getting a receipt from the driver. Maybe she intended to write off the taxi fee as an expense. Taniguchi and Kunikita were holding some kind of discussion as they watched. Yeah, the other night I'd gone to the convenience store was on the way back when I passed the taxi. Huh. And then I noticed the taxi sign on the roof looked like it said love. Oh, wow! Yeah, but the taxi sped off before I could get another look, and that's when I realized love is what I'm missing right now. Well, maybe it really did say love. It must have been like a private taxi. To think that we have two idiots engaged in such a ridiculous conversation for help. We must really be scraping the bottom of the personnel barrel. If I were to compare Taniguchi and Kunikita to nickel alloy, then Tsuya would be platinum. They're about as different as fireworks in Apollo 11. Hey, Mikuru, who do you think you are to come by taxi? Tsuya was pretty psyched up, but was at a mild level, nowhere near Haruhi's crazy natural high. You could say that Tsuya was still grounded within the realm of normal world. Wow, amazing, sexy! Mikuru, what's the place you're working at? Whoo! Must not allow anyone under 18 inside, huh? Or you're only 17. Yeah, that's right. You're not a customer, so it's okay. Asahina's eyes, puffy from crying, were in their natural color. Looks like they were out of color contacts. Haruhi dragged the petite waitress out front. You're not going to get away with pretending to be sick. We're going to keep on filming. Mikuru, this will be your time to shine. Everything is for the SOS Brigade. The spirit of self-sacrifice will always move the audience, no matter what world you live in. Hey, you be the sacrifice. There can be only one heroine in this world. It really should be me, but I'm giving up the seat this time as a special service. At least until the cultural festival's over. Nobody in this world accepts you as the heroine. Tsuya was slapping Asahina on the shoulder as she talked. Oh, what's this? Race queen? Some kind of character? Ooh, what's that? Ooh, that's it. Let's use it for this yakisoba cafe at the cultural festival. A bunch of customers were gonna come. I can understand why Asahina wanted to coop herself in her room. No pitcher going to stand on the mound when he knows a rally's about to start. Asahina slowly raised her head and looked at me in the eyes of a martyr begging for salvation, before quickly looking away. She let loose a soft sigh before offering a wan smile and dragging her feet over to me. Sorry I'm late. I was looking at the top of Asahina's head as she bowed down. Nah, I don't really mind. I guess I'm paying for everyone's lunch. Hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'm sorry about yesterday. It looks like I fired some optical weapon without realizing it. No sweat. I was perfectly fine. I took a quick peek. Nagato was standing around, absent-mindedly with the star-tipped antenna in her hand. Noticing my reaction, Asahina lowered her already soft and fine voice. I was bitten. She rubbed her left wrist. Bitten by what? Nagato. She said something about injecting nanomachines. But it looks like my eyes will no longer admit anything. What a relief. Which means I don't have to worry about getting sliced up, huh? Still, it's hard to picture Nagato biting Asahina. So what exactly did she inject? It was last night. She came with Koizumi to my home. Koizumi, in charge of keeping an eye on the equipment, was talking with Haruhi about something. Hey, invite me to these kinds of things. I'd much rather be invited on a visit to Asahina's home instead of closed space. What you whispering about? Tsuya wrapped her flexible arm around Asahina's neck. Mikuru sure is cute. I'd love to keep her at my place. Kyun, you guys getting along? Absolutely. Taniguchi and Kunikita, the hack combo, were admiring Asahina, who had her mouth half open. Hey, don't stare. What if you damage her looks? That was when Haruhi shouted. We've decided on a place. For what? Filming! Oh, yeah. I'd almost forgotten that we were shooting a movie here. Actually, I wanted to forget. It feels more like we're producing a cheap Idol DVD, oddly enough. There's a cool pond near Koizumi's house. We'll start filming there today. Haruhi was already out in front, carrying a vinyl flag with the words Film Crew written on it and leading the way. I called over Taniguchi and Kunikita, who were still staring inappropriately at Asahina, and we shared the bags and packs among us. After 30 minutes of walking, we reached the bank of the pond. It was located within some hills and approximately the center of the residential district. It was pretty big for a pond. Big enough for migratory birds to drop by during winter, and according to Koizumi, it was the time of year when ducks and geese start showing up. There was a metal fence surrounding the pond area, barring entry. There was an issue of common sense first, though. Or maybe a problem with how kids are being raised. Either way, you're not going to find grade schoolers playing around in a place like this these days, unless they're really dumb. What are you doing? Hurry up and jump over. Oh yeah, I forgot this girl was, in fact, really dumb. Haruhi, the director, had her foot on the fence and was beckoning the rest of us. Asahina had a look of despair on her face as she held down her short skirt. Suya was cackling next to her. What? What are we doing here? Is Mikuru going to swim? With a shake of her head, Asahina eyed the green surface as though it were a lake of blood. The fence is a tad high to climb, don't you agree? Koizumi was talking to Nagato, not me. It was futile to try to hold a conversation with her. She'd either give you a simple yes or no or went into a long spiel nobody could understand. However, while Nagato remained silent, she showed a curious reaction. She put her fingers on the metal pole supporting the fence and pulled it to the side. What was supposed to be an iron pole bent as easily as caramel under a burning sun, and eventually came to rest in a bent state. As skillful as always, I quickly turned to look at the other people, though it was probably unnecessary. Huh, must be old, Kunikita said with a knowledgeable look on his face. So what am I supposed to do? Am I a Kappa? Taniguchi muttered to himself as he squeezed through an opening in the fence and headed to the bank of the pond. Suya followed, leading Asahina by the hand, looking very reluctant toward the edge of the pond where Haruhi was waiting. The three extras weren't concerning themselves with any small details. At least that's a big help. Koizumi smiled equally at both Nagato and me before he slipped through the fence. Nagato, looking like a black mage, passed in front of me like a ghost. Not like I have a choice. I just have to get this filming over with and get out of here, before anybody starts asking any questions about destruction of public property. Asahina and Nagato stood facing each other again. Looks like there's another battle scene. Is Haruhi actually trying to come up with a story here? When is Koizumi going to make an appearance? Koizumi, in his uniform, was once again standing behind me in his lighting duty. After placing a director's chair on the muddy ground, Haruhi began furiously scribbling what I assume was the dialogue in a sketchbook. In this scene, Mikuru finds himself in a dire situation, because her blue eye beam has been sealed by Yuki. The felt pen came to a halt as she looked up with a self-satisfied look on her face. Yeah, that sounds good. You there, hold this up while standing. And just like that, Taniguchi was on cue card duty. The two actresses looked to the hands of the sulking Taniguchi. This won't be enough to discourage me. Evil alien Yuki, quietly leave Earth at once. I'm sorry. In response to Mikuru Asahina's unexpected apology, the evil alien mage Yuki Nagato opened her mouth. I see. She nodded without any sign of taking offense. She then read her lines in a deadpan voice per Haruhi's instructions. You should be the one to vanish from this time. He will fall into our hands. That is how much he is worth. He has yet to realize his own power, but is a valuable thing. Consequently, we will start by invading Earth. Haruhi waved her megaphone around like a conductor, and Nagato pointed the star-tipped antenna at Asahina's face in a similar motion. I won't let you have your way, even if it costs me my life. Then we shall take your life. Asahina shook noticeably in response to Nagato's flat words. Cut! Yelled Haruhi as she stood up. She ran over between the two of them. You're starting to get the feel of it. Yep, that's the spirit. But no ad-libbing, okay? And Mikuru, come over here. The director and leading actress turned their backs on the rest of us. I lowered the video camera and stretched out my neck. I wonder what they were discussing. After about a second, Suya was no longer able to hold herself back and began cackling in a loud voice. Oh my god, what's this movie about? Or is it even a movie? This is absolutely hysterical. Except the only other person able to enjoy this movie besides you would be Haruhi. Taniguchi and Kunikita were lounging around with looks on their faces that said, "Why were we called here?" Nagato was playing dumb by herself. Koizumi was gazing across the pond as though he'd become one with nature. I removed the almost filled tape and unwrapped a new DV cassette. Felt like I was just creating more garbage. Suya was looking at my hands with great interest. Is this what videos look like these days? A bunch of Mikuru pictures are on here. Can you show me later? It'll probably be great for laughs. This is not a laughing matter. Passing out flyers in a bunny girl outfit had been one day affair, but this stupid filming could potentially go on until the day of the cultural festival. Asahina could go from refusing to stand in front of a camera to refusing to go to school. That would hurt me the hardest, since I would no longer be able to drink her marvelous tea. Nagato's tea has no taste, and Haruhi's is bad on a fundamental level. Koizumi is just out of the question. If I end up in a situation where I have to make my own tea, I'd rather drink tap water. Sorry for the wait! Yeah, you kept us waiting. Waiting and waiting. About time to go home, I'd say. We don't want to trample too much pond-side foliage. We're just getting to the good stuff. Here, look at this! Haruhi shoved Asahina out in front with a push. Telling me to look at Asahina? That's not necessary. I stare at her every day. See, it's the usual, same beautiful, adorable, and fair Asahina. Huh? One of her eyes was a different color. The right eye this time. A silver eye looked apologetically between the ground and me. Use that miracle Mikuru laser to fire something, anything fantastic, and attack it. I didn't even have time to tell her to stop. Even if there had been enough time, I still would have gotten sliced and diced. At any rate, it was all too sudden. Haruhi delivering the dangerous command, Haruhi blinking in surprise, and also the dark figure of Nagato pushing down Asahina by the pond. A recreation of the scene from yesterday. It was like watching a replay. Nagato had used her special teleportation again. In an instant, only her hat remained where she had been standing, and it softly floated to the ground. The person who had been wearing that hat had, in a blink of an eye, traveled a number of meters to ride Asahina, Iron Claw to the temples. Everyone watched dumbfounded as the two actresses began wrestling on the damp ground. Nagato! The wordless and expressionless Nagato paid her screaming no heed and straddled Asahina with just a slight ruffle of her short hair. Hey! Haruhi quickly recovered. Yuki, you're a mage. You're supposed to be bad at physical combat. This isn't the time to be mud wrestling. However, Haruhi shut her mouth mid-sentence and spent 3 seconds thinking. Well, this works too, actually, since it'll probably sell. Kyon, make sure you're filming. Let's not waste Yuki's idea. This isn't by design. She's reacting to the situation. Some kind of defensive measure to deal with contact lenses. I'm sure Asahina understands that, but she's so scared that all she could do is cry out softly and kick her legs. Tantalizing. No, no, this isn't the time for fan service. That was when a rattle made everyone besides the two look behind us. It was the fence around the pond that Haruhi had climbed and the rest of us had squeezed through. The space had been occupied was now empty. The fence, cut in a V shape, was now lying on the road as though it had been hit by an invisible laser. After a moment, I looked back to find Nagato biting in Asahina's wrist like an anemic vampire. I was careless. Surprisingly, Nagato was criticizing herself. The laser was configured to disperse and become harmless. This time, it was a hyper-osculatory particle cutter, she muttered in a tone that suggested she wasn't breathing. Koizumi, picking up the black hat and offering it to her, opened his mouth. Something like monofilament, I presume. But if the particle cutter is invisible to the eye, it must have no mass? Nagato took the hat and casually put it on her head. I perceived the trace amount of mass, approximately equivalent to 1 over 10 to the 41st power grams. Less than a neutrino? Nagato remained silent as she stared into Asahina's eyes. The waitress's right eye was still silver. Asahina wiggled around as she rubbed her bitten wrist. What did you, inject into me this time? The tip of the pointy hat moved about 5 millimeters. It took that it was a sign of confusion. She must have been fretting out how to word her response. And just as expected, Nagato responded. A force field was established on the surface with the ability to phase-shift dimensional oscillatory cycles and transform them into gravitational waves. She delivered that baffling sentence in a strained voice. I had no idea that you could eliminate the killer wire, but for some reason beyond my comprehension, the other two appeared to accept the explanation. Koizumi was saying irrelevant things like, I see. Incidentally, gravity manifests itself in waves. Nagato probably also thought this question was irrelevant, since she didn't give him an answer. Koizumi shrugged his signature pose. However, we certainly were careless. This was also my responsibility. I was only expecting laser beams to shoot from her eyes. Fire something. Anything fantastic were her words, I believe. Seems other people weren't allowed to follow Suzumiya's train of thought. She truly is an amazing person. Follow her train of thought? More like she's already lapsed the rest of humanity multiple times. A whole 3 laps even. And you can feel the presence as she creeps up from behind. It's so intense that at a first glance, a person that stands might be confused and assume you're on the same lap. That's something only people racing on the circuit would know, and Hari isn't even going easy on the pedal, be it an S-curve, a Degner curve, or a crisscrossing one. And on top of all that, she's the only one with a Bussard ramjet engine, which allows her to keep going forever. She set up the rules so that nobody could keep up with her, even if they wanted to. And she has no idea that this whole thing is fixed. When matters are this serious, you can't laugh it all off just because she happens to be clueless. Well, fortunately, said Koizumi, everyone appears to have accepted that the fence deteriorated due to poor maintenance by the local government. I'm just glad the matter didn't get out of hand. I glanced at the pale face hidden from under the hat. Yuki'd shown us her palm, which looked like it had been sliced up by a whirlwind, a picture gruesome enough to scare people who can't stand pain. Except it was healing so fast, it was like if it never happened. I look over to the second group, standing some distance away. Haruhi and the haphazard trio of extras were watching the video on the camera and shouting in a melodic voice. Oh wait, no, that was just Suya. So wait, what do we do? I asked. I feel like there's going to be a disaster if we keep filming. We can't call off this movie, Koizumi replied. What do you think is going to happen if we force Suzumiya to stop filming this movie? She'll probably go berserk. Absolutely. Even if she didn't personally go around wreaking havoc, we can rest assured that Celestials will be rampaging within closed space. Yeah, don't remind me. I never want to go there again. I never want to do that again. More likely, Suzumiya is just having too much fun in the current situation. She's able to freely engage her imagination and create her own movie, almost like playing God. As you already know, she's usually irritated by how reality doesn't work the way she desires. That's actually not true, but since she hasn't realized it, the result is the same. However, in this movie, the story progresses according to her wishes. Anything else is possible. Suzumiya is using this movie as a medium to reconstruct her own world. She's as selfish as ever. You can't have what you want unless you're extremely rich or powerful. Go become a politician or something. As my face cycled a variety of grimaces and frowns, Koizumi continued talking with a smile on his face. Of course, Suzumiya is not aware of that. She believes that she's creating a fictional world within the movie. Her earnest passion is focused on the production of this film. I would presume that her passion is so great that she's unconsciously affected the real world. It's like rolling a die that only has negative numbers on it. We can't continue filming and let Haruhi's delusions run wild. We can't stop filming and put her in a bad mood. Both choices lead to bad endings. Nonetheless, if we must choose between the two, I would prefer to continue. Yeah, give me a good reason why, I asked. I've grown tired of hunting Celestials. I'm just kidding. Sorry about that. Let's see, the reason is basically as follows. Allowing a few alterations in this world would appear more conducive to our survival than letting the entire world be reset. So we just allow Asahina to become Superwoman in the real world? This time, the alterations to reality are quite modest when compared with Celestials. After all, Nagato is able to effectively utilize protective revisions. When compared to the prospect of starting the world over from scratch, wouldn't you agree that dealing with supernormal phenomena case by case sounds vastly preferable? Well, I'd gotta say that neither scenario sounds very good. What if we hit Haruhi from behind and knock her out until the cultural festival's over? That's a terrible idea. But if you take full responsibility, I won't stop you. I can't shoulder the entire world. And with that reply, I turned to look at Asahina, who was picking dirt off the waitress costume with her fingers. She looked like she pretty much had given up hope. Upon noticing my gaze, she quickly opened her mouth. Don't worry about me. I'll get through this somehow. She's so sweet. Her face looks pretty pale, though. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure she doesn't even want to be bitten by Nagato every time something comes up. Even if the tooth marks do disappear shortly, it doesn't change the fact that it's creepy. After all, if I were to give Nagato a long-handed sickle, she'd look like Death Girl from the 13th Tarot Card, or an ageless space vampire. Either way, she's going to be sending you to the beyond. Of course, in Asahina's case, it was injecting instead of sucking. Still, if you attribute this all to carelessness, Asahina seems to have a weak sense of danger for someone from the future. Maybe it's because I don't know how she really feels, since it involves a bunch of classified information. Well, I'm sure she'll tell me one of these days. And of course, we should all be alone in a confined space when that happens. It was finally time for Taniguchi and Kunikita, along with Suya. When Haruhi revealed their roles in the movie, we learned that they'd be playing nameless bit characters. Their roles were listed as normal people being manipulated by slave puppets by evil alien Yuki. In other words, Haruhi explained with an unpresent grin on her face, Mikuru fights for justice, so she can't harm normal people. Yuki is taking advantage of that weakness. She's using hypnotic magic to control normal humans. Mikuru, unable to fight against ordinary civilians, gets all beat up. Asahina's pretty beaten up already. What do you intend to do to her? By the time I finished that thought, Haruhi was already talking again. We're gonna start by throwing Mikuru into the pond. Asahina was the only one reacting with surprise. Suya was guffawing to the side. Taniguchi and Kunikita looked at each other before turning to Asahina's bewildered face. Hey now, Taniguchi said with a strange half-smile on his face. The pond? The water might be warm, but it's fall already. Even the most generous fool in the world wouldn't call this water clean. Suzumiya, at least use a warm water pool. Asahina was presenting her earnest objection, on the verge of tears. Even Kunikita was defending her. Yeah, that's right. What if it's a bottomless bog? She'll never float back up again. Look, there's a bunch of black bass. Don't say stuff that'll make Asahina faint. Also, it's already proven that the more you resist, the more stubborn Haruhi becomes. True to form, her lips were puckered like a duck's bill. Shut up, okay? Sacrifices must be made for the sake of realism. I wanted to use the Loch Ness of the Great Salt Lake for this, but we don't have the time or money for that. It is our duty as humans to do the best we can with the limited time we are given, which means we are using this pond. What kind of logic is that? And this conversation seems to assume that Asahina has to suffer water torture. You could just switch the background, you know. Why can't you use your mind that way? As I was pondering whether I should stop her, someone tapped my shoulder from behind. I turned back to see Dan Koizumi with a thin smile on his face, wordlessly shaking his head. Yeah, I know. Tamper with Haruhi the wrong way and weird stuff will start happening. If Asahina starts shooting plasma balls from her mouth, we might have Japan's self-defense forces coming after us. Fine, I'll do it, Asahina announced with a bitter voice. She must be heartbroken. Here's a poor girl sacrificing herself for world peace. An incredibly cliche development that would probably be the climax of making of video. Except the camera isn't rolling. Haruhi was thrilled. Mikuru, that's great! Oh, you look so divine right now. That's what I would expect from one of my hand-picked brigade members. You've really grown. It's more like she's learned rather than grown, I'd say. Then the two of you will take one of Mikuru's arms, and Suru can hold her legs. When I say ready, go. Once I've said it, toss her into the pond. The following scene played out under Haruhi's direction. The three extras started by standing in a line in front of Nagato with their heads hanging as the black-garbed mage waved the antenna pointer. It almost looked like some kind of Shinto exorcism ceremony. As I watched Nagato's blank face while she moved the pointer, she did have a sort of shrine maiden feel to her. Afterward, having received Nagato's command to target Asahina, the three of them moved towards the heroine, walking stiffly like zombies seeking fresh meat. Mikuru, sorry, I really don't want to do this, but I'm being mind-controlled and stuff. Really, I'm sorry. Blah. Suya, who looked like she was having the absolute time of her life, crept towards the waitress with a smile reminiscent of a cat-shaped bus. Taniguchi, always timid in a pinch, pretended to hesitate while Kunikita scratched at his head as they both approached Asahina, who turned pale, then red. Hey, you two morons, be serious about this! You're the moron. But I swallowed that comment and continued looking through the camera. Asahina, knees buckling, slowly backed to the edge of the pond. Prepare yourself, Suya said brightly as she shoved Asahina down and hoisted an exposed thigh under each arm. This is getting dangerous. Hee! Hee! Asahina was seriously scared. Taniguchi and Kunikita each grabbed an arm. Wait, actually, is this necessary? Is this really... Paying no heed to Asahina's painful cries, Haruhi nodded solemnly. It's to make the scene better. In other words, for sake of art. A common expression, but I have to wonder where's the art in this half-ass amateur film. Haruhi barked the order. Now, ready? Go! Splash. A large amount of water sprayed out on the aquatic inhabitants of the pond as their lives disturbed. What? Really good job acting like you're drowning, Asahina. Or I'm getting a feeling that she's actually drowning. To be honest, I can't tell at this point. My feet won't reach the... Good thing we weren't in the Amazon region. If she were splashing around like this down there, she'd make an easy target for predators. I wondered if black bass attacked people as I looked through the viewfinder when I discovered that Asahina wasn't the only one splashing around. Ah, shit, I swallowed water. Taniguchi was drowning. Apparently, the momentum from throwing Asahina had carried him into the water too. We didn't need to worry about him. "What's that idiot doing?" Haruhi apparently agreed and ignored the moron as she pointed the megaphone at Koizumi. "Okay, Koizumi, it's your turn. Go say Mikuru." The leading actor, who had been stuck on lighting duty, smiled elegantly as he handed the reflector board to Nagato and ran over to the edge of the pond, extending his hand. "Please grab on. Calm down. Try not to drag me in as well." Asahina clung to Koizumi's arm like a shipwrecked victim clinging to a piece of driftwood. Koizumi gently lifted the soaked time-traveling combat waitress and held her close to his body. "Hey, that's a little too close." "Are you alright?" It was cold." Her already tight costume, now soaked, was practically transparent. If I were a member of the Motion Picture Code of Ethics Committee, I would ban anyone under 15 from watching this movie without any hesitation. To be honest, this feels worse than full nudity. It feels like we might get arrested. "That's perfect!" Haruhi was whacking the megaphone as she shouted triumphantly. I ignored Taniguchi, still splashing away in the pond, and hit the stop button on the video camera. We had enough crap to open a vending stall, yet we didn't have a single towel. Asahina's eyes remained shut tight as she wiped her face with Suya's handkerchief. I stood next to Haruhi, breathing silently as she diligently checked the video. "Yeah, not bad." Haruhi nodded after playing back Asahina's drowning scene 3 times. "The scene of their meeting was adequate. You can feel how Itsuki and Mikuru are still awkward around each other at this point." Yep. "Really?" Koizumi looked the same as always. "The second step is next. Itsuki, after saving Mikuru, decides to hide her in his own home. That's when the next scene will start." Wait, that doesn't flow at all. Where did Nagato, the one controlling Taniguchi and the others, go off to? And Team Tamaguchi, what about them? How are they stopped? Even underlings need a proper portrayal or the audience isn't going to buy it. God, you sure are annoying. People understand what happened without us filming it. You can just skip the boring parts. You're a freak. You just wanted to throw Asahina into the pond, huh? As I grew enraged, Suya raised her hand and spoke. "Hey, my house is super close by. Mikuru looks like she's about to catch a cold, so I can get her a change of clothes." "That's perfect!" Haruhi cried, her shining eyes focused on Suya. "Suya, can we borrow your room? I want to film Itsuki and Mikuru getting friendly there. With a smooth turn of events, the movie will definitely be a success." I can't get rid of the gnawing suspicion that Suya only brought it up because Haruhi wished it to be so. Except that Haruhi accepted Suya as an underling, so she should be just as ordinary as me. "Hey, what about us?" Taniguchi raised that question. Kunikita stood next to him. Yeah, we can go home. Good work, bye, so long, may we never meet again." The names of those 2 classmates have already been erased from Haruhi's mind at that point. Without another look at Kunikita with a shocked look on his face, or Taniguchi shaking water from his hair like a dog, Haruhi dubbed Suya our guide and walked off. "Hey, you guys are lucky. Your job is done. Apparently, you're worth as much as expended BBs as far as Haruhi's concerned. That's actually something to be happy about." Suya was also pumped up for some reason. She talked happily. "Okay, everybody, this way." She stood at the head, waving the flag around. It's not like Haruhi's arbitrary behavior was anything new. She'd probably been born with it. In 500 years, they'll probably have a story going around about how she was proclaiming that the universe belonged to her the second she came out of the womb, just like one of the many legends in the Haruhi Suzumiya Chronicles. Well, who cares about that? Haruhi and Suya, walking to the front of the group, had hit it off at some point and were singing the chorus of Bryan Adams' 18 Till I Die over and over in ridiculously loud voices. It was excruciatingly embarrassing to be an acquaintance walking behind them. I'm amazed the silent black Nagato and the reflector board carrying star Koizumi can tag along without bothering to keep their distance. You guys should learn from Asahina, walking along with her shoulders slumped and head down. And you should help to share the load the stuff I'm carrying. We've been going uphill for quite a while now. I'm starting to understand how it feels to be a racing horse trained by running uphill. "Okay, we're here. This is my house," Suya shouted as we stopped and stood in front of the house. Her voice was big, and her house was big too. Well, I assumed it was big, since I couldn't actually see the house from the gate, but there was more than enough to support the notion. If you can't see the house from the gate, that must mean it's a great distance away, and if you look to the left and right, you'll find a wall looking like something from a samurai residence stretching as far as the eye can see. I wonder what kind of crimes you have to commit to live in a place like this. "Come on in!" Haruhi and Nagato must have not known what the word restraint meant, seeing as they just barged on in as if it was their own home. Asahina appeared to have been here before, since there was no sign of surprise on her face when Suya pushed her in. "Hey, an old family that follows old customs. You can feel the refinement and the mysterious bearing of this place. You can feel its age. Koizumi said in a voice that didn't exactly sound filled with admiration. What, are you some kind of extravagance reporter? After crossing space large enough for a baseball triangle, we finally reached the entrance. Suya took Asahina to the bathroom before leading us to her room. This made my own bathroom look like something a cat would sleep in. A spacious, traditional Japanese-style room that was so big you wouldn't know where to sit. Except that I was apparently the only one troubled by any of this. Haruhi entered the room without a care, followed by Nagato, then Koizumi. Hey, nice room. This will be good enough to film in. That's it. We'll say this is Koizumi's room. We'll shoot some scenes of him getting close with Mikuru here. Haruhi was sitting on a cushion and looking through a rectangle formed by her fingers. Suya's room was a simple tatami affair with a tea table as the only furniture. I was attempted to copy Nagato, sitting next to me, by kneeling on the floor with my back straight, but after 3 minutes my leg couldn't take it anymore. Haruhi had been sitting cross-legged to begin with as she whispered something in Suya's ear. Hey, that sounds so much fun. Hold on. And with that, Suya, laughing cheerfully, zipped out of the room. I put my thinking cap on. Is Suya really a normal person? It's a widely held opinion that anyone that could get along with Haruhi is either abnormal or is not human. It could just be that they happen to be on the same wavelength. After a few minutes of waiting, Suya returned. She brought Asahina as a gift. And it wasn't the usual Asahina, but an Asahina who had just gotten out of the bath. She was wearing a loose t-shirt that was probably borrowed by Suya. Actually, the t-shirt was the only thing she was wearing. Sorry to keep everybody waiting. Asahina, with her hair still damp and her skin flushed, hid behind Suya as she entered the room before kneeling down straight and hunching up. The sleeves and shirt were far too long for Asahina, which resulted in the t-shirt looking more like a one-piece dress. It was beautiful. She'd forgotten to remove the contact, which meant her right eye was still silver, which would have been dangerous, but the fact that neither beams nor sharp wires would be shooting out meant I could breathe easy. It almost made me want to run to some shrine and worship Nagato, who hadn't removed her hat yet. Here you go, guys! Drink up! The tray Suya set on the floor was filled with enough glasses of orange-colored liquid for anyone in the room. In a flash, Asahina drank half the glass of orange juice handed to her by Suya. She was the most active today, so she was probably pretty dehydrated. As I also gratefully savored my juice, Haruhi had already downed hers with a single gulp and was crushing away at the remaining ice. Okay, we might as well film in this room while we're here. After barely any rest, we were already starting to film the next scene. Koizumi carried Asahina, pretending to be unconscious, into the room. For some reason, a futon was already spread on the floor. Koizumi laid Asahina down on the futon and stared at her sleeping face. Asahina's face was fairly flushed, and her eyelashes were twitching. Koizumi placed a blanket over her defenseless body, crossed his arms, and sat down at her side. Asahina pretended to mumble in her sleep. Koizumi continued to watch her with a smile on his face. Nagato, who apparently didn't have a part in the scene, was still drinking her orange juice behind Suya and me. I zoomed in on Asahina's sleeping face as I gazed through the viewfinder. Haruhi didn't provide any instructions, so I was free to follow my own preferences. However, Haruhi continued issuing real-time instructions to the two leading stars. Mikuru, it's time for you to wake up. Say your lines exactly the way I told you to. Yeah. Asahina gradually opened her eyes and looked up at Koizumi in a daze. Are you awake? Asked Koizumi. Yes. Where am I? My room. Asahina sat up slowly. She looked like she had a fever, and her eyes couldn't seem to focus. She was behaving awfully sexy. Is she acting? Thank you very much. Haruhi immediately relayed the next instruction. Now, you two, get your faces closer together. And then Mikuru closes her eyes and Koizumi puts her arm around her shoulders. Or just shove her down and kiss her. Huh? For some reason, Asahina's mouth was half open. Koizumi put his arm around Asahina's shoulder as instructed, which was when I could no longer hold myself back. Hold it. You're doing way too much abridging. And wait, is there even a scene like this? What's going on here? It's a romantic moment. A love scene. You have to include stuff like this when you're supposed to do multiple time slot programs. Moron. Is this supposed to be a 2-hour drama that airs at 9 p.m.? And you, Koizumi, why do you look like you're ready to act? If something like this gets screened, you'll find hundreds of curses in your shoe locker. Use your head, man. The sound of cackling laughter made me turn around. Suya was bent over with her nails digging into the tatami mat, laughing her head off. Mikuru is acting so funny. It's not funny. At least, that's what I wanted to say, but it was clear that Asahina wasn't acting normally. She couldn't even hold her head up straight. Her eyes were dazed, and her cheeks were flushed, and it wasn't even resisting Koizumi's arm around her shoulder. This isn't amusing at all.
Koizumi, my head feels heavy.
As she said things that make me want to offer flowers to a certain mouse, Asahina was lurching around. I was wondering if she had been drugged when I realized something. My eyes went to her empty glass as Suya laughed. Sorry, I mixed tequila with Mikuru's juice. I was told that some alcohol might help her acting get better. This was Haruhi's idea, wasn't it? I was more angry than shocked. Don't secretly mix that kind of stuff in. Oh, who cares? Mikuru looks really sexy right now. Makes for a better scene, says Haruhi. You couldn't call this acting anymore. Asahina was staggering around. Her cheeks were flushed red below her closed eyes. I don't mind her looking sexy, but I'm not too happy about her leaning up against Koizumi. Koizumi, just kiss her already. Of course, I mean on the lips. Oh, hell no. You should not be doing that to someone who can't even tell left from right in her current situation. Cut it out, Koizumi. Koizumi appeared to ponder whether he should listen to the director or the cameraman. I'm gonna smack you. Either way, I lowered the camera. I don't intend to film such a scene, and I don't intend to let such a scene be filmed. Koizumi smiled as though to reassure me and moved away from the staggering leading lady. Hey, director, this is too much for me to handle, and Asahina seems to have reached her limit.
No, I'm perfectly fine,
Asahina said while looking anything but perfectly fine. Honestly, I guess it can't be helped. Haruhi puckered lips like a duck's bill and approached the inebriated girl. You're still wearing the contact? That should have been off for this scene. She whacked the back of Asahina's head.
Ouch,
the Asahina said as she held her head. That's no good, Mikuru. The contact's supposed to pop out when I whack your head. Let's try it again. Practice. Whack.
Ow.
Whack.
Ah.
Asahina's whimpered as she squeezed her eyes shut. Cut it out, stupid, I said as I grabbed Haruhi's arm. How is this practice? How does this have to do with anything? How is any of this fun? What is it? Don't stop me. I'm merely following convention. What convention? This isn't amusing at all. It's dumb. Asahina isn't your toy. I've decided that she is. Mikuru is my toy. As soon as I heard that, blood rushed to my head. It felt like I was seeing red. I seriously snapped. For a second, impulse overcame reason. My body was reacting unconsciously. Somebody grabbed my wrist. It was Koizumi. Koizumi was shaking his head at me with narrowed eyes. I saw that Koizumi had stopped my right arm, which is right when I noticed my right hand was balled up in a fist. My right fist had been on the verge of punching Haruhi. What are you? Haruhi glared at me with a glint in her eyes bright as the Pleiades. What do you have a problem with? You should just do as I say. I'm the brigade chief and the director, and I will not have you go against me. I was seeing red again. Goddamn bitch. Let me go, Koizumi. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with animals or humans. Anyone who refuses to listen deserves to be hit, or else she'll spend the rest of her life as a prickly moron everyone avoids.
Please stop.
Asahina jumped in, speaking like a slurred voice.
You should fight.
Asahina, who had come between Haruhi and me, collapsed on the ground, face bright red. She put her arms around Haruhi's knees.
Everyone needs to get along, or else that's classified.
And with that, Asahina's eyes closed as she mumbled, and then her breathing grew regular as she fell asleep. Koizumi and I were walking down the hill. We see the pond that we've been using below us. The actress was no longer employable, so filming was called off. After leaving the sleeping Asahina in the hands of Suya, Koizumi and I, along with Nagato, retired from the mansion. But for some reason, Haruhi insisted on staying behind by herself, took the video camera from me, and turned her back on us. I didn't say a word as I gathered up our belongings. Suya saw us off. I'm sorry, Kyon, Suya said apologetically, but she soon smiled. I got a little carried away back there. Don't worry about Mikuru. I'll send her home later. Or she can even spend the night at my place. Nagato trudged off the second she was through the gate. Doesn't seem like she has anything to say about all this. That's how it is anyway. She never has anything to say about anything. After 5 minutes of walking side by side silently, Koizumi opened his mouth. I expected you to be a more composed person. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Look, we already have enough problems in the world to deal with. I would rather you refrain from any actions that would lead to the creation of closed space. Like I care. Isn't that what you fishing-sounding secret agency or whatever is for? You people can deal with it. In regard to the prior incident, it would appear that Suzumiya was unconsciously restraining herself. Closed space has not appeared anywhere. So this is a request from me. Please make amends with her tomorrow. I'll decide what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do something because you told me to. Well, what's important now is to think about what to do about any effect she has in real space. Koizumi shamelessly changed the subject. I went along with it. Can't really do any thinking about it. I have no idea what's wrong with what. Well, the theory is simple. Whenever Suzumiya has an idea, there's a ripple effect in the real world. Isn't that how it's been? I recall the blue giants wreaking havoc in the gray world. Whenever Suzumiya says something, we have to respond accordingly. After all, that is our role in this world. I remembered the glowing red balls. Koizumi spoke in a confident voice as he strolled along. We serve as Haruhi Suzumiya's tranquilizer, her sedative. Well, guess that would apply to you. It also applies to you. The mysterious former transfer student continued the smile. Closed space is our primary workplace. You are responsible for the real world. If you can keep Suzumiya calmed down, closed space will not appear. As a result of your efforts, my workload has decreased significantly in the past 6 months. I should thank you. Don't bother. Okay, then I won't. We reached the road at the bottom of the hill. Koizumi broke the silence again. Incidentally, there's somewhere I'd like you to come with me right now. And if I refuse? Hey, we'll reach the location shortly. You won't need to do anything there. Of course, this is not an invitation to close space. Koizumi raised his arm. A familiar black taxi came to stop us. So as I was saying, Koizumi leaned against the back seat of the taxi. I stared at the back of the driver's head. At the present, there's a pattern to the situations involving you and Suzumiya. The basic framework involves you with the rest of us brigade members actualizing Suzumiya's whims. Yeah, it's a pain in my ass. Indeed. However, we do not know how long the status quo will be maintained. A repetition of events is most likely one of Suzumiya's peeves. Though, she appears that she's having fun right now. Continued Koizumi with a smile that lacked any sense of urgency. We must strive to keep Suzumiya's quirks within the contents of this movie. If you want to become a baseball player, you start by practicing swinging. If you want to become a shogi or go player, you start by memorizing the rules. If you want to score the highest on final exams, you should start by having the resolve to stay awake all night with your eyes glued to your textbooks. In other words, different methods can be applied to the concept of hard work. However, what kind of hard work is needed to eliminate Haruhi's mental delusions? If you tell her to stop, there'll be a mass of that stupid, aggravating gray space. But if you go along with her fantasies, there's a possibility they'll become reality. Either way, it leads to an extreme result. Does she not understand the concept of moderation? Well, I suppose that's what makes Haruhi Suzumiya. The taxi was driving a snaking uphill road. It led to the mountain the bus had taken us to yesterday. Eventually, the car came to a stop in an empty parking lot. It was for visitors to the shrine where Haruhi had turned a gun on a priest and doves yesterday. That's odd. There should be more people here on Sunday. Koizumi exited the taxi first. Do you remember what Suzumiya said yesterday? Like I'm gonna remember every single random thing she said. Look, you'll remember once we're here. Let's head inside. He then added, It was already like this in the morning. We ascended the stone stairs. We passed through here yesterday. The gate at the top of the gravel path that leads to the shrine, and that's where the flock of doves. There were doves bustling all around, a flock of birds pecking at the ground like a moving carpet. However, I couldn't be sure that these were the same doves as yesterday. That would be because every single feather on the mass of doves was completely white. Did someone paint them? In just one night. There's no doubt that the white feathers on these doves are completely natural. They are the result of neither dyeing nor bleaching. Maybe they were scared by Haruhi. Maybe just someone brought a bunch of white doves and replaced all the park birds. That's just infeasible. Who would do such a thing? Look, I'm just throwing the idea out there. I've already come to my own conclusion. I just don't want to say it out loud. This is what Haruhi said yesterday. I prefer doves that are completely white, but I'm willing to take any color at this point. Obviously, she wasn't. That's how it is. This must be the result of an unconscious act by Suzumiya. We are fortunate that it happened a day later. Possibly expecting us to feed them, the rustling doves came over to us. There weren't any other worshippers around. As you can see, Suzumiya's rampage is steadily progressing. The ill practices from the film production are advancing into the real world. Look, can't we just shoot Haruhi with a tranquilizer and let her sleep until this cultural festival's over? Koizumi responded to my proposal with a chuckle. It's plausible, but would you be willing to handle the aftermath when she wakes up? Yeah, no thanks. It's not my duty to provide such service. Koizumi shrugged. So what do we do? Isn't she God? You fanatics can deal with it. Koizumi feigned a look of surprise. Suzumiya is God? My, who would have said such a thing? You did. Is that so? This guy's the one I should punch in the face. Koizumi laughed and delivered his usual, just kidding, before moving on. The fact of the matter is, I see no problem with labeling Suzumiya as God. The general view within the agency is to regard her as God. Of course, there are dissidents. I would consider myself a skeptic as well. What I'm trying to say is that if she was truly God, she would not be living in this world unaware of that fact. A creator would be high above, performing occasional miracles and watching calmly as we scurry around. I squatted down and picked up a feather that had fallen. I then began twirling the feather. The cries of the doves grew louder. I wish I brought breadcrumbs. This is what I believe. Koizumi was still talking to himself. Suzumiya was granted divine powers, and she is unaware of that fact. If a divine really exists in this world, then Suzumiya would be a special human chosen by God, but she would still be human. I don't think it makes much difference whether she's human or not. Still, why does Haruhi unconsciously possess such baseless magical power? Enough to turn doves white? What's it for? Who's it for? I haven't the slightest idea. I don't know. Maybe you do? Is he trying to pick a fight? Excuse me. Koizumi chuckled before continuing. Suzumiya builds, but at the same time she destroys. Perhaps our current reality was a failed effort, and perhaps Haruhi Suzumiya is the existence who had been given the mission of correcting this failed world. Which would mean that we are mistaken. Suzumiya is always in the right. We who interfere with her actions would be considered alien elements to this world. And that's not all. In fact, every human besides Suzumiya would be mistaken. That sounds pretty bad. The problem would be for those of us on the wrong side. When the world is reconstructed in its correct form, will we be a part of the new world? Will we be removed as bugs? Nobody knows that answer. Don't say anything if you don't know the answer, especially not in a tone that would make it sound like you know what you're talking about. But would you say, in a way, that she's been able to ineffectively reconstruct the world? That would be because her unconscious is suited to create. Suzumiya is a very positive person. However, what would you think would happen if this was reversed? It didn't look like he was going to shut up. I gave up and nodded. What would happen? I don't know. However, it is easier to destroy rather than to create. I don't believe in that, so it should vanish. That's all it takes. Just like that, whatever she's referring to would cease to exist. She can cancel anything. It doesn't matter how strong my foe may appear. Suzumiya needs to only deny its existence and all will be destroyed, be it magic or advanced technology, regardless of what it may be. But Haruhi wouldn't reject it, since that's what she's been waiting for. And that's why we're concerned. Koizumi murmured in a voice that didn't sound very concerned. I doubt we have any way of knowing whether Suzumiya is a god or a similar existence of some sort, but if there is one thing we can be certain of, if she were to freely use her power, it would not matter if the world changed or not, because no one would realize it. That's quite impressive. After all, Suzumiya herself would not realize it. Why? Because Suzumiya is part of the world, evidence that she's not the creator. The god who created this world should be outside of it. However, she lives in the same world as the rest of us. And the fact that she can only cause incomplete changes is unnatural and extremely bizarre. From where I'm standing, you're the bizarre one. Koizumi ignored me and continued. However, I'm quite fond of the world we live in. A number of social contradictions exist, but humans should be able to deal with them over the course of time. The problem would be if there is such a change as Ptolemaic theory becoming accurate in the sun orbiting Earth. We must do what we can to prevent Suzumiya from believing such things. You returned from close space because you are of the similar opinion, correct? I don't know. Beats me. I forgot already. I locked away past memories I don't want to remember. Koizumi smiled thinly, a self-mocking sort of smile. Sorry, I spoke out of character. I must have sounded like a defender of justice convinced that we were protecting the world. Please excuse my outburst. Yeah, you kept us waiting. Waiting and waiting. About time to go home, I say. What was that draw? It was excruciatingly embarrassing to have an acquaintance walking behind them. It was excruciatingly embarrassing to be an acquaintance It was excruciatingly embarrassing to be an acquaintance walking behind. Fuck, why can't I get this line? Ugh! Mikuru, that's great! You look so divine right now. That's what I expect from one handicap brigade members. Fuck. Crept toward the waitress with a smile reminiscent of a cap-shaped bus. Is that a Persona 5 reference?